Let's talk about narrative adventure games. Walking simulators. Games like Life is Strange. I love this genre because I love being a specific person in a specific place, and the easiest way to convince me of that is to give me a 3D place that I can wander around in as a 3D person and talk to other 3D people. It's just the most immersive way for me personally. Unfortunately, this is becoming a pretty rare genre, and I think that's because most people who want to create narrative-driven games have decided to try and create visual novels instead. I mean, I like visual novels too, but I'm worried that they're making this decision because they're scared of the 3D game engines and the 3D game environments. Nothing to be scared of. Let's go ahead and soothe that fear so that you can choose between 2D and 3D on purpose, rather than just out of fear. A lot of people avoid 3D game engines like Unreal or Godot or Unity because they think they're going to have to do a lot of coding to get the stuff to work. And that's not true. That would be true if we were making a game with gameplay, but walking sims are derogatorily called walking sims because they don't have any gameplay. And if you're just talking about walking around in a set and occasionally clicking on something, you don't need any code for that. There's a visual editor to create the set, and you can occasionally put in a clickable object with a green box around it and connect it to something. Zero code is involved. Moreover, it's a much simpler set of states to remember as a developer. If you decide that you're going to develop a 2D visual novel, say in RenPy, not only are you going to have to learn 3 different scripting languages, but every single angle that you ever show Main Street from, it has to be its own screen, with its own custom-coded set of what happens when the player gets here, where can they click to go where, what menu pops up. All of that has to be custom-coded for every single background shot you ever create, which means that there's no possible way to create a set of backgrounds like this in a 2D novel because you would never be able to get the fidelity required to be able to walk down the street. Instead, you'd be like, okay, well, we'll just show one screenshot of this place here. This is the corner cafe. You want to go to the corner cafe? Okay, now I've got to code it so they can click on the left-hand side of the screen and they can go over to whatever's down here. Yeah, they can go to the berry shop. Okay, and I got to code another custom left-hand click, or I need to code a custom right-hand click so they can go back to. You can see how in a 2D novel there's quite a bit of coding involved in just trying to make this same sort of scene. So if you're trying to compare 2D and 3D, it's important to realize that your 2D shots, they might be easy to find. You might be able to, do a Google search for corner shop or something, but you're going to have a very hard time actually connecting things up. Whereas in a 3D game environment, a contiguous space is contiguous. You can just walk around inside it. This is true of the interactables as well. In a 3D environment, an interactable is just where it is. So you don't have to worry about having a custom screen where the player can see it and click on it. You don't have to worry about whether or not it's connected properly to the chain of transition screens between here and there. It's just an object, and you can put, a little bit of custom scripting in so that it only appears when the player has the ability to use it. Like, oh, can you not go inside this shop here or this building here until you've gotten the bank key or whatever? Well, you just have a simple thing that puts the actual entrance that you're going to be using there when they have the bank key, and otherwise they don't. You don't have to create a set of custom transitions that lead you to a new custom location. It's just much easier for a developer to put together a setting in 3D, as long as they have the assets. And this is definitely one of the other big fears that people have of working in 3D. Where are we going to find all of these 3D assets? Because I ain't making them all. I think that's an okay fear to have. Let's talk about that. Obviously, if you are an expert in 2D art, if you draw 2D art for a living or as a major hobby, you're going to be able to create a 2D set of art, and maybe in that case it is quite important for you to create a two-dimensional visual novel rather than a 3D set. It's just you're good at the 2D stuff. But if you are among the many people who don't draw 2D or 3D, there's nothing inherently easier about 2D. Not for this sort of setup. A lot of these people will turn to middleware like DAZ. And they'll say, okay, well, I'll just use the stock DAZ street or something like that as my setting, and then we'll do some renders and we'll use that in the background. It's like, well, if you're going to be doing that anyway, that's a 3D asset. You can just put it into the 3D game engine or find a nearly identical asset that's already built for that 3D game engine. This is a free asset from the marketplace. And I haven't edited any of this. I can. It's all stuff that I can move around and edit however I want. But I don't have to. I could take renders and screenshots and put it into a 2D game, but it makes more sense if I'm using a 3D set of assets to just use it in a 3D engine and put it together properly. Moreover, most environment assets like this are pretty engine agnostic. Aside from some details of materials, which you can probably fix if you are bringing it from somewhere very strange, for the most part, it's pretty forgiving. So if you have a favorite DAZ pack or whatever, you can usually dump it straight into Unreal or Unity or Godot, as long as you can find some way to export it into a common format. This is one of those things where overcoming the barrier enough to create 2D art out of 3D assets is also enough to create 3D art out of 3D assets. So if you're going to have to find those 3D assets either way, you might as well keep them as 3D assets. Right? Now, there are some constraints about this in terms of how well it interacts with your ability to create the game, and we're not talking about that yet. Maybe I'll make a custom video about how to actually create assets that you can use in a walking simulator or layouts out of existing assets. But for now, I just want to make it clear that you're going to have to find these assets either way. You might as well try and keep them 3D if you're going to be looking for 3D assets in the first place. And the same is true of characters, right? A lot of the people who are creating visual novels will turn to some middleware for characters, like, say, DAZ or even Blender. And they will try and put the characters that they have found somewhere or created somewhere into those locations, in those places, and then they'll basically take screenshots. They'll basically render out whatever the pose is and all that stuff to try and get these characters to work in the 2D game environments. And it's like, you've got a 3D character. Put them in a 3D environment. And you might be thinking, oh yeah, but then you've got to do like the animations and all that stuff. And yes, that is definitely going to be a bit of a challenge. But it's not a challenge that is insurmountable. There are plenty of free animation packs, and even if there aren't, you can actually create either poses or animations as you prefer right in the game engine, whether it's Unity or Unreal. Probably Godot too, I haven't checked. They just let you pose the characters. So you can still put them in the 3D game world and just use very basic posing tools in the same way that you would in your other, DAZ or whatever, except for instead of taking a screenshot, you put it in the game as it is. All of this stuff can lead to some fairly clunky interactions, because your animations are probably going to be a little bit unsuitable or a little bit stiff. But compared to no animations, or compared to having a transition screen every 3 inches that you have to manually custom code, I just don't see why you would be scared of creating 3D characters in 3D if you're already creating 3D characters for 2D. The barriers are not that high, and you don't require any custom coding to create animations or to link animations to various kinds of, conversation elements and stuff like that. There's no coding in that. It's all just blueprint dragging and connecting connectors. Now, I don't want to oversell this. I don't want to say, oh yeah, it's easy to create games in Unreal or whatever, because games are hard, and I don't want you to think that just magically things are going to work out. But I don't want you to be scared of trying it, because it's no more challenging than RenPy. You don't have to learn 3 different scripting languages. You don't have to code up every single transitionary screen. You're just creating a 3D environment using drag and drop tools. A lot of the 3D assets are going to be available for free, both characters and places. And if you're already doing that sort of stuff anyway for your 2D game, you might as well give it a shot at keeping it 3D. I'm considering making some more videos about this, talking specifically about how to put together this sort of game in 3D, with examples, like walking you through it step by step in Unreal at least. And there are some neat tricks that you can do. Like, for example, you might not be aware that you can import and export all of your dialogue stuff, including things like what happens after the dialogue or what kind of camera angles to use, from an Excel sheet or an OpenOffice sheet if you don't use Excel. There's an easy way to do that in Unreal. So again, it's something manageable. It's something where you can create a fairly complicated game in a fairly straightforward way. It's still hard, because games are really hard, but I think you'll find it is at least as easy as it is in 2D. Let me know what you think.